Once again, it's time for Now and Then Radio with Denny Farrell and Rich Renik.
Well, Rich, what's on your little mind today?
Well, not a lot, obviously, because it's a little mind. Boy, we used to use a lot of stuff that would be considered violent today as toys when we were kids.
And nobody ever got hurt.
Not that I know of.
No.
And, it's just so interesting that not long ago, that was just how you played.
Yeah.
That's just what you did. And now you hear stories about children playing with play guns and maybe bringing it to a level that they ought not to.
Well, it's all in the perception of the guy watching them. Who caused,
that is true.
Right? I mean, you can't even go to school today with certain things in your pocket like you used to. Let's go to the line, see if anybody has a thought on that. Tony, hello, Tony, are you there?
Yeah, hi. I remember when we were kids, we used to go out all day sometimes in the park and playing with realistic-looking toy guns, you know, combat TV series.
Right.
And nobody bothered us at all. The police would go by without giving us a thought. And nowadays, they just had some guys busted because they were playing with air pistols in a parking lot.
Air pistols? Like BB guns, you mean?
Well, they shoot the little plastic balls. They're not as dangerous, I guess.
With all the press that we've had today, in the newspapers, in the media, the radio, and so on, you think people would know better than to go out like that. It's not like before where you could do that. Nobody would think anything of it. And today, you just can't get away with it. Where did this happen?
Milwaukee, right outside Milwaukee.
Well, that's one of those things that you can't do anymore.
Well, you know, I can also remember not too long ago, well, actually it was a long time ago, when The Rifleman was one of the best shows on TV.
Oh, he was my favorite.
Oh, I love Chuck Connors and The Rifleman. And for Christmas, Santa Claus brought me the Rifleman gun.
Yeah.
Well, now, Tony, you remember this here where Chuck Connors would stand there in the opening scene? He would stand there with the Rifleman gun, and he would shoot it and then swing it around. And he was so cool when he did that.
Right.
Well,
a little lever on the trigger guard.
Yes, he did. Well, I got that thing, Tony, out of the package, and my mom and dad were still sleeping, and I wanted to do the Rifleman thing. So I took that gun, I fired it, and I swung it around, and all that they heard was this kid screaming. My arms were not long enough for that rifle to swing around. So actually those guns did hurt people. but only the ones that were using them, I guess.
Thanks for your call, Tony. You could
was.
use your imagination back then, which was something that a lot of has been taken away today.
Yeah, I some of my fondest memories too. Go back to some of the simpler things, and you do hit it on the head, Denny, when you talk about things just being overly produced. And you can even look at what we do. It's summertime. People are traveling, and now it seems like everyone is moving in travel directions that are complicated. Vacations and travel was just real simple.
We used to put water bags on the car to go across the desert. Do you remember?
Yes.
Yeah, you would put them on the front bumper.
I never went across the desert. As a child, I know my parents were hoping I would, but that actually never happened. What we used to do, though, is our big family vacation was to go to Kenosha, because my dad was born in Kenosha, and our big vacation was to go up there and to visit with his relatives.
The cheese heads?
Oh, you bet, you bet. And my dad's claim to fame is his neighbor was Don Amici. Oh, so there you go. But vacations, I mean, sometimes you could go and spend hours recollecting of vacations that you took.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if anybody would be interested in sharing vacation
Let me see
story
here.
with us.
Hello, John, are you there?
Yeah, I have a real fond memory of when we were kids, and my parents would always pack up the car, and we would drive down to like the area of Titusville, Florida. And we'd always enjoy how fresh and sweet the oranges were, and we would pick Tangelo oranges and then pack them up in the car and bring them back to Chicago, and we would have a supply worth. But on one trip when we came back, we just had such a large cargo of material coming back with us. We put them on the roof rack. Lo and behold, coming back to the Chicago winter, they all froze up. So
You had frozen orange juice. They didn't have a state inspection back then where you crossed the state line and they'd have fruit inspection?
It was pretty laid back then.
No, but so you had a case of frozen orange juice. What did you do with it when you got it home?
Well, we would actually turn it into juice, but some of it had a lot more acidity back in the oranges, once it froze, so it wasn't as good.
Have you gone back to Florida since, John, to pick oranges?
Oh, many times.
Yeah.
I'm curious, John, is your last name Sunkissed?
No, not quite.
If it had been, that probably wouldn't have been a problem.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go,
More
John.
likely.
But, boy, how things have changed. And yet you still go to Florida and you still see those souvenir stands that look like big oranges.
Yeah,
You
they're
know.
all
That's
over.
correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we're going to take a short little break. Thanks for the call, John. We're going to pay a couple of bills, and then we'll be right back.
Back to Now and Then with Rich Renik and Denny Farrell.
On the phone with us right now, we've got Ron. Hello, Ron. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you, Dan.
Did you take your vacation this year, or are you waiting until next year, or are you recalling a vacation of days gone by?
Days gone by. I'm thinking of the summer of our freshman year in high school, and we went up to Door County, Wisconsin, and for lack of nothing else to do, we made a homemade raft out of big trees that we rolled into the water, lashed them together, and went out onto the lake. And we had a boat came up and said there's storm warnings. We need to, get back to shore. And we're thinking, what's going to sink this?
How old were you? A freshman?
Year of our freshman year in high school.
So that would make you, what, 14?
Yeah, well,
Well, in Rich's case, it would be 22.
22. I suppose. But all of a sudden, these long poles that we had for pulling our way around no longer hit the bottom of the water, and we were at the mercy of the waves. And pretty soon we were out there. The shoreline was just a pencil line, and no ships, no boats, just adrift. And then finally on the horizon we saw a ship just a small. It was so small it was far away, and we're waving our jackets and yelling and everything else, and it just never saw us. We're too low to the ground. And then finally one of the guys on the raft let out a string of expletives. They turned and came at us, and people on the boat were taking pictures, and it was an experience.
So
I didn't tell my parents about it until I was in my 40s.
Oh, my goodness. So your nickname is Robinson what?
I'll tell you, that's got all the makings of some kind of a mini-series, I'll tell you.
Well, that's a deadly thing to do.
Seemed like a good idea at the time, right?
Yeah, we were all prepared, but
Almost all prepared.
almost. We had nothing but our desire.
Well, I'm curious, Ron, did you make it back?
Yeah, we made the papers, too.
Good. Well, the next time you take a ride, we hope it'll be at Riverview taking the chutes. Okay, thanks for your call, Ron.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Boy, you talk about amusement parks and so forth, and it's hard not to think about where we have gone, Denny, in the field of technology for entertainment. Again, we're talking about how movies and films have taken away the imagination. And some of the rides that are available in amusement parks are just incredible. The discussion we had with Ron to bring up Riverview and to talk about where we were with entertainment back in the 50s and 60s and how we have moved forward.
Well, I was happy with the Bobs, I can tell you.
I
at Riverview.
love the Bobs.
Yes. Western and Belmont. Who was the guy who used to do the commercial? The
That was
heavyset guy. What was his name?
Baker.
Two-Ton Baker, that's right.
Yes.
He'd come down the chute and do the commercial.
Yeah, Nickel Day. You could get in and ride rides for a nickel.
Of course, you can go to Western and Belmont today, and you're in a lot of trouble.
Yes.
Yes. But anyway, Rich, at Riverview, there were so many different things that you could do. That parachute ride, I spent all my money on that. I think it was like 200 feet high.
Mm-hmm.
The parachute, the Aladdin Castle, you remember that?
Oh, absolutely. On the parachute jump, that to me was the scariest because there was no place to put your feet.
No.
They just dangled.
I think that's what made it neat.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a real jump.
And, of course, I think Aladdin's Castle was the trademark of Riverview. And it was, again, my recollection, one of the neatest places for rides that you could possibly go to. Chris is on the line here with us.
Chris?
Yeah, I wasn't old enough to ride the buses in the L by myself or with my friends, so by the time I got old enough to do that, Riverview shut down.
Oh, you mean you missed Riverview?
I missed Riverview.
Oh,
I've heard about it my entire life, but I missed it.
She must be 15 years old.
My goodness. Well, where did you go though for your entertainment and for your fix of rides, or that your folks did take you to?
Well, we went to Playland. Yeah, it was like 79th and Ashland or something like that.
Well, the one I'm thinking of was Injustice. It was like 79th and Archer or something like that.
Okay, yeah, Archer.
Does that
Yeah.
sound right? And
Yeah.
what of the rides there were the ones that stand out in your mind?
Oh, the mouse.
I was going to say the Wild Mouse. That was
The
mine.
mouse.
Yeah.
Scared the pants off us when we were kids. Because you thought
Absolutely.
you were going to fall off the edge of it.
Yep. And do you recall the Rocco plane?
Yes.
The Rocco plane. I used to be able to get that puppy spinning like a centrifuge, and it didn't bother me at all then. Now, no spinny things.
No more Rocco plane for you?
Uh-uh.
No.
The Tilt-A-Whirl was my favorite.
Yeah, and again, then it was fun. Now,
It was boring.
So how much time would you spend there when you would go?
If we were lucky, we would go, for the afternoon on a Saturday
Mm-hmm.
and spend the day. And it was a reward. We would get to go maybe once a year.
And why would you be rewarded? What did you do?
We would clean house and help Mom.
I mean, when you talk about back then, I mean, you were supposed to clean the house, right?
Right. You had all your chores and stuff like that. And they would, as a reward, every once in a while,
Mm-hmm.
allowance didn't start till later, so.
Yeah. Now, I'm curious, Chris, did you ever sneak out back then?
We didn't have to. We didn't have to report in. I mean, you had a party line phone,
Mm-hmm.
2 or 3 people on the same line, friends 6, 7, 8 blocks away, and you'd walk to their house and play with them all the time. You never told your parents where you were at or what you were doing. They told you, go out and play, and that's what you did.
and it's interesting, Chris, when you talk about going out and play. That's something I don't see a whole lot anymore of. The way we were out and playing, cops and robbers and cowboys and Indians and all the stuff that now is politically incorrect. But
Oh, yeah.
but we used to do that, and you're right. As a matter of fact, that now you just don't see that. You don't see that interaction anymore. And it wasn't that long ago in my mind that moms and dads would come out and you spent your evening talking,
Sitting on the front porch.
sitting on the front porch.
Yeah.
Wow, what an idea, huh?
Hmm.
Chris, many thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, the great days of Riverview, there's no doubt about it. It was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
Oh, it absolutely was.
I always remember standing out in front of the Aladdin Castle and watching people walk up that ramp to go into the castle, and they had that little air thing that would blow up. You remember that?
I do, and
Yes.
the barrel
Right.
that rotated that you had to walk through to get out.
That was amazing. At 13 years old, I felt how it would feel when you were 21.
And still do.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Let's see. Who we got? We got Dennis on the line. Hello, Dennis.
Hello.
What's on your mind?
I remember way back when about cassettes, 8-track, and now we have CDs, we have DVDs, and way back when you had the vinyl records, you had them 33 and a third, 78, and then the 45s.
Right.
How things have progressed through time.
Now, what do you prefer? Do you prefer a CD over vinyl?
Yeah, I think I prefer the CD over vinyl because then you can go to track. Before you were not able to do that so easy. You had to pick up the stylus and try to set it on the track that you wanted to listen to, and sometimes you did it, and sometimes you didn't do it. But now at least with the CDs, you can address the track that you want. So, and I remember also cassettes. Cassettes were even worse because you had to fast forward to the one that you wanted to do, and if some of the cassettes were made properly, you can index to the 4th one, and it would go through all 4 songs and then stop at the one you wanted. I can remember the stuff like that.
And it's interesting, too, Dennis, when you think of back then, as you were trying to line up the tone arm to the cut, you were afraid of scratching the record. And now that's a style of music, to intentionally scratch the
That's
records.
right. They go back and forth.
Yeah.
And they play the records backwards. I don't know if you can do that with a CD backwards, can you?
If you've got a queuing type CD where you can rotate back, you can play it backwards, yeah. But on the serious side, if you were listening to tone and to quality of, say, a good album, not one that's been played by every kid in the neighborhood, but a good LP as opposed to a CD, and I'm talking about good speakers now, okay? The warmth that you heard on vinyl is missing today when you play a CD. It's just there's no warmth. It's cold. It's flat. Do you hear that?
I mean, I didn't really realize that. I mean, when I remember when you had the vinyl that was just mono, and then it went from mono to stereo, and then you really heard a difference, and then when it went from stereo to hi-fi, and then you really heard a difference.
I can recall vividly when we got our first stereo. It was a Sears Silvertone stereo, and the only thing that was available at that time to demonstrate stereo were the sound effects records. And you would have the train coming, and the ping pong game,
the water,
and the bowling balls, and we would sit there listening to this as a family going, whoa, listen to that. Let me hear that ping pong thing again. I mean, we've come a long way, haven't we?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, even some of the cassettes that came with the smaller boom boxes, as now they call them. I remember the cassette you put in there, and it showed you the stereo feature of, let's say, a train or a car going from one speaker to the other.
And now introduce the MP3s and the new devices that are recorded from your computer.
Oh, yeah, and when you got your surround sound now, as they call it, 5.1, so you got speakers on the side of you and behind you and in front of you, and you can hear bullets ricocheting, and that's really interesting what they're doing with that.
Yeah.
Well, they had that Project 3 back in the 70s and 80s, those Project 3 albums, excellent quality. Though.
Absolutely.
I will keep my albums and always play them. If you want to get rid of them and you want to give them away, just give me a call, okay?
Okay.
Thank
you.
It. Thanks, Dennis.
Dennis, appreciate the call.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, yes. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Isn't that interesting? I mean, the fact that we're still listening to music the way we listen to music, we're only listening to it differently. Cindy's joining us. Cindy, appreciate you being on Now and Then.
Hi. Wanted to say that I'm relatively younger. I listen to old-time radio shows now. A friend of mine introduced me to Jack Benny, Nero Wolf. Really neat because you don't have to be plopped in front of the TV. You can listen to it in your car, on your Walkman, or wherever you just happen to, be at that particular time.
Kind of theater of the mind, right?
Yes, it's awesome. I have a friend, and he remembers listening to The Shadow, on Saturday night, and I didn't get that opportunity.
What do you find interesting about it?
I thought it was very neat. It was very interesting the way they put it together, the sounds and the actors and the different voices, and then you found out at the end that it was one guy doing 3 or 4 voices, and it wasn't really a dog. It was some guy being a dog. It was just really interesting.
Now, Cindy, do you feel the same way about television shows?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like reality shows at all. And I can remember watching Columbo. It was always my favorite.
Oh, yes.
And I go back to Cisco Kid.
Oh, yes.
Flash Gordon.
Pancho!
Burt Wyman. Lynn Burton for certain for Burt Wyman. North Ashland. Wasn't that on North Ashland?
Oh, yeah,
Sunday mornings.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great TV.
Chan will do it every time.
No, that's right.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Cindy, many thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Well, we're going to take a short little break, then we'll be right back.
Back to Now and Then with Denny Farrell and Rich Renik.
We're talking about old-time shows and some of the great movies, and it wasn't that long ago when I'd watch Superman Saturday mornings, and I would watch Commando Cody, and ultimately my mom would have to go outside and find me with my rope strapped to my neck as a cape, running around the neighborhood.
And this was 2 weeks ago.
Well, actually, it was last month. It was. It wasn't. It was last month. And somebody said, "Rich, will you come in here?" And I said, "All right, you got to go to work now."
Yeah.
So anyhow, Tony, you're on the air here at Now and Then. What are some of the recollections that you have?
Well, when I was a kid, Lloyd Bridges had Sea Hunt on. So when I would go out and play, I would take, I don't know if you remember the ginger ale bottles that were They were probably a little smaller than what 2-liter bottles are now,
Yes.
but they were glass, and I used to strap them to my back.
Oh, no.
And yeah. And my mom, oh, she didn't enjoy that. It was worse than playing in traffic with your eyes closed. She was just all upset.
Now, was she upset because those were potential deposits that she was going to
I
lose?
think, yeah, but probably.
2 cents, you're lost.
Yeah.
I used to
My
watch that all the
goodness.
time.
Yes, Lloyd Bridges, and oh my goodness.
That's what got me into scuba diving also.
Yes, you're a
Yeah.
scuba diver. I'm
Oh,
a
yeah.
scuba diver, and you're a
Yeah.
scuba diver too. Is that cool? Now let me ask you. You watched Sea Hunt. Do you think in any way that influenced your interest in becoming a scuba diver?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I would have to say that the answer to that for me would be yes,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. It was something that you said, boy, I'd like to try that. And then, of course, when you had the opportunity to try it, it was pretty good. In fact, I've never had anybody come running up to me with a knife and cutting my air hose.
And what type of regulator did Mike Nelson have?
He had a dual hose, U.S. divers, I think.
You're right. Yeah, it was U.S.
Wow.
diver. Yeah.
Give
I
this
have one
man
in
a
my
prize.
Yeah. You win a trip around the parking lot.
Yet I watched whirlybirds all the time,
Yes.
but I never wanted to become a helicopter pilot.
Well,
I mean,
I did, but I didn't. I couldn't qualify. The Army didn't want me, so.
Well, they wanted me.
yeah,
You
yeah.
could've-
They wanted me and
Yeah.
got me.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
The only thing Rich and I have in common now is we both don't walk around with our hands in our pockets. Uncle Sam taught us not to.
Yes.
What, you got your hands in your pocket,
Absolutely.
fool? Yes.
Tony, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Where did the simple entertainment go?
I remember playing all day with an oatmeal box. Yes.
And that, too, was, 2 weeks ago? But again, how simple things were for so many boys, primarily, when we were young, was playing with boxes that stuff came in.
Oh, yeah.
And the biggest thing was when somebody in the neighborhood would order a new washing machine. A washing machine or a new ice box. And it was like, whoa, forget about the ice box or the washing machine. I want the box.
And now you've got a fort.
Oh, yeah. Or a spaceship or a car.
Yeah. A clubhouse.
Whoa.
It was good until it rained.
It
And then the party's over, You notice when you drive down streets today, I mean, like we were talking before, you don't see anybody outside playing anymore.
Not at all.
Everybody's inside. I mean, it's how do people get to know each other? Through
Well,
the
obviously
computer?
they don't. Yeah, you see how people communicate, and you're right. I mean, the way we learned by sitting next door and talking to our neighbors.
That personal touch is so important. And when you would go out in the evening, it wouldn't be dark yet, because when it started to get dark, you had to get home. And you always were home when it got dark. Everybody would be in the neighborhood, would be outside playing. There would be a baseball game going on someplace, a football game in the neighborhood. It was just noisy. And now it's quiet. It's almost like a ghost town. Michael, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, how you doing?
Pretty good. I remember Lockwood Castle on Central and Devon.
Lockwood Castle.
Yeah, they were famous. They were really famous for this Belt Buster Sundae they had. It was like 14 scoops ice cream and half a watermelon cut out.
And you actually ate this?
No, if you ate it within an hour, it was free.
Who took you to the hospital after you ate it, though, in an hour?
I'll
Mike.
tell you what, there was a lot of mishaps on the way to the bathroom. It was really bad.
And I'm sure they had people try that, though, huh?
Oh, all the time. The time. Every time I went in there, somebody was,
Wasn't feeling too good. I understand.
trying to do that. It was unbelievable. And then there was the Buffalo on Pulaski and Irving. That was the best place to take your date when you were in high school.
Uh-huh.
Gosh.
That was the best. You walk into the front door. It was like an old soda fountain. soda jerks, the whole 9 yards.
And
you had bananas behind the counter right there with for the banana splits, and it was like all old time wooden stalls.
do you think it was old time? Back then, wasn't it just current time?
Oh, this is in the 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
That was great. You can get anything there. Chocolate Foss, anything.
And if you were to mention a chocolate phosphate or a cherry phosphate to anybody today, they would have no clue what you're talking about.
I know.
Isn't that a shame? So why don't we start doing phosphates again?
Well, there's probably something chemically wrong with it.
Well, yes.
Listen to Mike.
Now, Mike, on the southwest side, I grew up on the southwest side. You're obviously north, but on the southwest side, we had places that maybe you heard of because you would travel a lot of miles to get to these places, and one of them was Rainbow Ice Cream, 90-something and Western.
By the Evergreen Plaza.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had Dove candies, and the Dove ice cream was just wonderful, and the Purple Cow was another one. But when you went into these places, Mike, what did you have anything that stimulated your senses?
Oh, just the smells, the ambiance. It was great. That Rainbow Ice Cream, I believe they're still around, right?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Isn't that's the place when you drive by? There's people lined up around the block to get in the joint.
Yes, and that hasn't changed.
Yeah,
I was there and I bought a couple of gallons of the ice cream, and it's a little bit pricey, but it's worth every penny of it because I would take that gallon of ice cream and I would go home, lock myself in the garage, grab a spoon, and make sure that my wife never knew I had it.
That was like wife 1, 2, 3, or 4.
All of them.
All of them. And if you can see Rich, you'll know why he's in the garage.
Yeah.
And Mike, do you find yourself perhaps in an environment, I don't know, bakery or whatever, where you get an aroma that is reminiscent of that vanilla and all of a sudden you're back there again?
Oh, it's like hearing a record.
Yeah.
It's hearing an old tune.
Oh, yeah. That's, you hear an old song, you know exactly where you were when you first heard it.
Yeah.
And sense.
And ice cream does that to you, Mike?
Not necessarily ice cream, the toppings and stuff like that. When they pour like the peanuts, you can smell the fresh peanuts for the topping and stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah, that brings you back.
And today you still have the Cupid candies and so forth that have the soda fountains, but there's just something magic about going in and having that chocolate and the vanilla smell, and the porcelain seats and the counters with the marble and the nice booths where you can sit there and get the drink or your ice cream sundae or your phosphate served to you in those cones.
I wonder if they still make, what was it, the Brown Cow, or what was that called?
Black Cow.
Black Cow.
The Black Cow. Root beer and vanilla ice cream.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm getting hungry. But you know what? I mean, as much as that, I don't know how much you ate like that. We're so health conscious, and we should be. Certainly, we should watch what we eat. But, I don't know that we did back then. We ate ice cream. We didn't worry about it. But we didn't go goofy over it, too. We didn't eat it every single day. It was just special.
But we have mandatory gym class.
We have mandatory gym class.
Yes.
Right, exactly. So you would run it off. But today they don't have gym.
Well, the other thing is they have super maxi size, drinks and fries and Big Macs and all that. You order a cheeseburger, you got a cheeseburger, you didn't get a monster.
That's right.
Yeah, Big Macs didn't come, 1975, I think. Wasn't it somewhere around there? 75, 76?
Golly, you're probably right.
Well, I remember that commercial. 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun.
You would have won the contest.
Yeah.
There you go. Are you a father, Mike?
Pardon me?
Are you a father?
No, I'm not.
Okay. If you had children, how much of what we talked about would you try to reestablish with your children? And that is, making something special out of something simple.
Wow. Baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet.
So you're going to get them a car right off the bat, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Good going.
Oh.
Well, I need a new car, Michael. I'll be right over.
Mike, many thanks for calling Now and Then.
Okay, thank you.
You've been listening to a sampling of Now and Then Talk Radio, dedicated to baby boomers and their children. If you know of a radio station in your area that might be interested in carrying Now and Then Talk Radio, get in touch with us simply by sending an email to thevoicebank@comcast.net. That's thevoicebank@comcast.net. Now and Then Talk Radio.